The tale of a deceitful truck driver, woven with threads of treachery and betrayal, unveils a chilling narrative of manipulation and control. This man, presenting himself as a charismatic and caring partner, secretly harbored sinister intentions. His targets were vulnerable widowed women, often desperate for companionship and support. Through strategic deception and emotional manipulation, he constructed a facade of trust and love, only to shatter it with his true intentions. His deceit knew no bounds, as he exploited these women's emotional fragility, using their longing for love against them. With each false promise and fabricated story, he wove a tighter web of deceit, trapping them in a cycle of dependence and fear. This story not only explores his manipulative tactics, but also delves into the deeper, darker motivations that fueled his reprehensible actions. As the narrative unfolds, it becomes evident that this truck driver's actions were driven by a deep-seated anger and resentment stemming from his own past experiences of betrayal. This essay aims to shed light on the dark corners of human behavior, illustrating how past scars can lead to destructive future actions. It serves as a cautionary tale, urging vigilance and awareness to prevent such tragedies. The truck driver's primary weapon in his arsenal of deceit was his charm. With a smile that could disarm the most cautious, he presented himself as the epitome of a gentleman. He used this charm to infiltrate the lives of widowed women, portraying himself as a beacon of hope and stability. His conversations were sprinkled with compliments and promises of a future filled with love and security, making his proposals seem like fairy tales come to life. However, beneath this charming facade lay a calculated plan to bind these women to him. He presented them with engagement rings, symbols of commitment and love, but these rings were nothing more than cheap imitations, tools in his con game. These false tokens were his way of sealing their trust and affection, making it difficult for them to see through his lies. The engagement rings were not just physical items, but emotional shackles. Each ring represented a promise, a future and a bond that was never to be fulfilled. By giving these rings, the truck driver created a false sense of security, leading these women further into his trap, preparing them for the financial exploitation that was to follow. Each victim, adorned with a worthless ring, found themselves more emotionally invested and thus more vulnerable to manipulation. This tactic of using counterfeit symbols of love highlights the depths of his deception and the premeditated nature of his scams. Once the emotional foundations were laid, the truck driver shifted his focus to financial control. With the trust and affection of these widowed women secured through his deceitful engagements, he began the process of intertwining their financial lives with his. This phase was marked by subtle suggestions initially, talks about the benefits of combined resources and shared financial responsibilities, which soon escalated into more direct interventions. He would suggest taking over their finances under the guise of helping them manage their money better. With a concocted blend of financial jargon and feigned concern, he convinced them to grant him access to their bank accounts and assets. Once he gained control, he methodically siphoned their funds, redirecting their life savings to fuel his lavish lifestyle and further entrenching them in dependency. The manipulation didn't stop at direct financial exploitation. He also encouraged them to take on debts, often in their names, for expenses that he fabricated or grossly inflated. These debts ranged from unnecessary home renovations to extravagant purchases that aligned with his desires rather than their needs. By leading them into a financial quagmire, he ensured that they were tied to him out of necessity, not just affection or loyalty. This strategy of financial domination was not just about enriching himself, it was a means to deepen their bondage and isolate them from potential avenues of escape or independence. The origins of the truck driver's deceitful behavior can be traced back to a tumultuous relationship that left him embittered and vengeful. His past lover, whom he had deeply trusted, betrayed him, engaging in infidelity and deceit that shattered his world. This betrayal ignited a fierce anger and a burning desire for control, which he later projected onto unsuspecting victims. His experiences with betrayal morphed his worldview, leading him to justify his actions as a form of recompense. In his mind, controlling and deceiving others was a way to regain the power he felt he had lost. This twisted logic fueled his schemes, pushing him to target those he perceived as weak and manipulable, widowed women looking for a second chance at love. The resentment harbored within him was not passive. It manifested in aggressive and controlling behavior. He was particularly triggered by any signs of independence or resistance from the women he targeted, perceiving them as echoes of his past lover's betrayal. This often led to escalations in abuse, both emotional and physical, as he sought to quash any dissent and reinforce his dominance. Understanding this backstory is crucial, as it sheds light on the psychological underpinnings of his actions. It highlights the complex interplay between past traumas and present behaviors, offering insights into the cyclical nature of abuse and manipulation. This backstory not only serves to explain but also to remind us of the deep scars that unresolved emotional wounds can create, leading to cycles of pain and perpetration. Section 5. A cycle of abuse. The dark side of control. The truck driver's interactions with these women were not limited to financial exploitation. They extended into severe emotional and physical abuse. His need for control stemmed from his unaddressed anger and resentment, creating a volatile environment where he felt compelled to dominate every aspect of their lives. This control was not just about power, it was about ensuring submission and obedience, reflecting his own insecurities and desire for revenge. The abuse often started subtly with belittling comments and criticisms designed to erode their self-esteem. He would mock their aspirations, ridicule their fears, and systematically dismantle their sense of self-worth. This psychological undermining was the bedrock upon which he built his regime of terror. It made the physical abuse that followed seem almost a natural progression, as he used violence as a tool to enforce his will, leaving them too broken and fearful to challenge him. Physical altercations were frequent and brutal. He used his physicality as a weapon, intimidating and hurting to remind them of their vulnerability and his control. This abuse was not random, but a calculated component of his strategy to keep them ensnared in his web of deceit, dependent on him not just financially, but emotionally and physically as well. The cycle of abuse continued, becoming more intense and frequent as his grip tightened. Each act of violence served to reinforce the fear and dependency that bound these women to him. This cycle was not only destructive, but also self-perpetuating. As the more control he gained, the more he feared losing it, driving him to even greater extremes of behavior. Section 6. Dark Arts Witchcraft in Manipulation. In his quest for absolute control, the truck driver ventured beyond the conventional means of manipulation. He delved into the realm of witchcraft, using it as a tool to exert psychological influence over his victims. This unconventional approach involved rituals and spells that he claimed would bond them closer together or protect their relationship. In reality, these practices were designed to instill fear and obedience, making the women believe that there were supernatural consequences to defying his will. The use of witchcraft added an eerie dimension to his manipulation, exploiting their superstitions or spiritual beliefs to further his control. He would perform elaborate rituals in their presence, creating a spectacle of his supposed spiritual powers. This not only mystified his actions, but also made it difficult for the women to rationalize their experiences or seek help, as they feared the unknown forces at his command. These practices were particularly effective in isolating his victims. By weaving a narrative that involved supernatural elements, he made it challenging for them to share their experiences with others, who might be skeptical or dismissive of such claims. This isolation was crucial in maintaining control, as it kept them dependent on him for understanding and protection against the very forces he pretended to wield. The psychological impact of these witchcraft practices was profound. They not only reinforced his control, but also deepened the women's helplessness and despair. This tactic shows the lengths he was willing to go to dominate and manipulate, venturing into the realms of the occult to ensure compliance and silence. Section 7. The innocents, preying on vulnerability. The truck driver's manipulative reach extended beyond the widowed women. It also ensnared their children, adding another layer of control and cruelty to his schemes. By preying on the young and vulnerable, he solidified his presence in their lives, using the children as emotional leverage to ensure the mother's compliance. His interactions with these children were a mix of superficial kindness and underlying intimidation, creating a confusing atmosphere that hindered their ability to see him for what he truly was. He often presented himself as a father figure, initially showering them with attention and gifts. This endeared him to the children, weaving him deeper into the fabric of their family life. However, this benevolent facade was short-lived. Once he established a bond, his true colors emerged as he used the children to manipulate their mothers, threatening their well-being if the women did not adhere to his demands. This tactic was not just cruel, but strategically effective. It placed the mothers in an impossible position, torn between protecting their children and escaping the abuse. This dilemma ensured their silence and submission, as defying him could mean repercussions for their most cherished, their children. The impact on the children was devastating. They were caught in a web of manipulation and fear, often witnessing the abuse of their mothers and living under the constant threat of violence. This exposure had long-term psychological effects, instilling fear and insecurity that could echo throughout their lives. The truck driver's manipulation of these innocents was perhaps the most heinous aspect of his deceit, highlighting his utter lack of empathy and morality. Section 8. The devastating aftermath, broken lives and lost fortunes. The consequences of the truck driver's manipulative reign were catastrophic, leaving a trail of broken lives and financial ruin. The women, once hopeful and vibrant, were left shattered, grappling with the trauma of abuse and the overwhelming burden of debt. Their financial ruin was not just a result of theft, but also of the extensive debts he had coerced them into, which lingered long after his departure. The emotional toll was equally profound. The betrayal and the abuse eroded their trust in others, making it difficult for them to form new relationships or seek help. Many suffered from severe depression, anxiety, and PTSD, the shadows of their experiences with the truck driver haunting them incessantly. The impact extended beyond the women to their families and communities. Children, witnesses to the cruelty and manipulation, carried psychological scars that affected their development and future relationships. The community too felt the ripple effects, as these cases of deceit and abuse undermined the sense of safety and trust within the neighborhood. Recovery from such deep wounds is a long and arduous process. It involves not just addressing the financial devastation, but also healing the emotional and psychological damage inflicted. This tragic tale serves as a stark reminder of the destructive power of manipulation and the importance of vigilance and support for those caught in such dire circumstances. Section 9. Conclusion. A call for awareness and prevention. The story of the deceitful truck driver is a chilling reminder of the depths to which human behavior can sink when driven by unresolved anger and a desire for control. It underscores the need for awareness and vigilance in relationships, particularly those involving vulnerable individuals. Recognizing the signs of manipulation and abuse is crucial in preventing such tragedies and protecting potential victims. As a society, there is a responsibility to provide support and resources for those recovering from such abuses. This includes counseling, legal assistance, and financial guidance to help them rebuild their lives. Moreover, educating people about the dangers of such manipulative behaviors and encouraging open discussions can help reduce the stigma that often surrounds victims, making it easier for them to seek help. This tale is not just a narrative of deceit and destruction, but a call to action. It is a plea for empathy, intervention, and a commitment to uphold the values of trust and integrity in our interactions. By fostering a community that is aware and supportive, we can hope to prevent the recurrence of such manipulative atrocities and ensure a safer, more compassionate environment for all.